What I have in front of me right now is the Sportiva Boulders. They're an approach shoe that Sportiva makes, and it's probably the shoe I have the most experience with. I've had this version of the shoe for probably around 4 or 5 years, not this exact pair, but I've gone through different pairs. So that's where that kind of comes into, I've had the most experience with this shoe. But what I can say about it is they're a really good shoe. So let's just kind of dive right into what makes the Boulders unique and what makes them a pretty good approach shoe. For starters, let's just get into kind of the Boulders in general as their general aesthetic. They're a full leather shoe with a lacing system that goes all the way to the toes, so you get more customization, and they have this really nice rubber rand all the way around the shoe. The only caveat to this is that it means that this shoe can be heavier. On Sportiva's scale of approach shoes, this is probably the heaviest approach shoe that they make. The TX guides are pretty lightweight, and then the equivalent to, for material wise, would be like the TX4s, and even the TX4s are lighter weight than this. So the Boulder is definitely the heaviest version. But what that also means too is that because it's overbuilt, it's really durable. But the other thing is it's actually quite stiff as well. You can see that there's a little bit of flex here. It's nothing too bad. But this makes for a very supportive shoe. And because you have thick leather uppers and it's just an overbuilt shoe, you actually have a sturdy shoe underfoot. So whenever you're going through rocky terrain, rocky outcroppings, these shoes are pretty dang stable. So that's kind of the benefit to the Boulder. Yes, they're heavy, but they're really durable, and they're very supportive. So Boulders, great for that. And the stiffness that the Boulders give you gives better climbability of the shoe. The other thing that I see a lot of people use these for is a shoe for aid climbing, because they are stiff enough that your feet won't get super fatigued if you're in aid ladders all the time. Or what I've used it for is climbing static line, using SRT stuff. So I've had these shoes in the foot loops and it works fine. I actually really like it because they are more stiff than something like my TX3s. So the Boulders, really good for that. Another thing that they, like I said, going kind of with the climbability, is that you can actually jam these in cracks and they're relatively good for it. I actually got to take this pair of shoes specifically out in Utah, and I went to do a couple slot canyons in Utah, and these were the main shoes I wore. And there's a lot of times when I was jamming my feet into cracks and kind of leveraging it, and they worked really good for that. And I was definitely happy to have a more durable shoe. You can kind of see that they have a little bit more wear to them. You can kind of see with the laces right here, you have some of that kind of it's just digging into the leather. You even kind of see this lace right here. This one's just a little bit kind of torn up. And I think the heel counter on this shoe is starting to wear out, and all the stuff right here, that's actually not just due to regular wear of the shoe. I can assure you on that, because all my other shoes that I've worn just around the area that I'm at, just doing just hiking and other stuff, with whether it be relating to climbing, those shoes are always in a great condition. The wear that you see on these shoes is purely just due to sand, and sand getting everywhere and having that micro abrasion. It's pretty bad for that. And I think I mentioned it in my TX3 video, of that is kind of the danger of having an approach shoe for slot canyons, is that the sand gets everywhere and it just starts rubbing and breaking down things a lot faster. So the wear that you see here is just from hard use in the desert. But realistically, other than that, there's just a couple of the softer cloth things. These shoes are in still a great condition. And what surprised me most about these shoes is actually the sole. The sole remains in a great condition, and that's awesome to see. Like I said, I was going on slot canyons, and sandstone's pretty abrasive and it's rough, and I was expecting to wear through the tread. a lot faster, and these things have held up. And what's very surprising about this is the compound that's used on the boulders is Vibram Hydrogrip. And like in my previous videos talking about Hydrogrip, it's better. It should be better for durability because it's a little bit harder of a compound. It's not as soft. But what it really excels at is in wet terrain. But the weird thing about this is that I've worn these way longer. I've put a lot of miles on them, and they're in really good condition for the sole. Whereas the flip side with the TX2 Evos, they also use Vibram Hydrogrip. I've walked way less in them, and the sole is wearing out faster. And so that's a weird thing. I don't know exactly what it is. You know, a person can speculate that maybe they made the sole like a little bit more thinner and delicate because the TX2s can be resoled. That's like assuming a lot. But it is definitely weird to see that the boulders stand up way better in comparison to the TX2s when they both have the same outsole of Vibram Hydrogrip. So that's a weird quirk, and that's a weird conspiracy that I don't know. It's just, it doesn't make sense that the TX2 Evos are wearing that much when these are still in great condition. And kind of like even just mentioning that about the TX2 Evos, you can kind of see that these don't really have a good prominent heel. They do have like a little bit of a bite system right here, and they have better, like deeper lugs, but you know, it isn't like a true replacement for a heel, but it's good enough. You do have this little climbing edge, which is really nice for standing on edges. And yeah, so after probably, I don't know, I think I've had 4 or 5 years in these shoes, not these ones exactly, but in boulders in general. Would I continue to get them? I would. It's hard for me to say. I do like the ruggedness and the durability out of them. It's really awesome to have just a super sturdy shoe. And I don't mind a little bit heavier of a shoe if it means I get more support. I'm not too fickle when it comes to weight, and like I prefer, even in just every day, I would prefer to wear boots rather than just like trail running shoes every day. So I'm a little bit different in that aspect, that I like heavier shoes and more supportive shoes, and that's what the boulders do really good at. But there are some things that, you know, are kind of downsides with the boulders. Because it is an older construction of a shoe, you do have some weird quirks of shoe design from probably like, I don't know, 10 years ago. That's just kind of weird. They're pretty hot. When it's in the summer months, I don't really go for these just because they don't breathe really well at all. And granted, it is leather, so what do you expect? But I think just because like there's more padding and everywhere, your feet just tend to get a little bit more hot. And for me personally, I have like a lower volume foot, and my feet thrive in something like the TX2 Evos and the TX3s. Because they have a pretty low profile flat toe system that's in the toe box, whereas these, you know, they are still more of a lower profile, as most Sportiva shoes are, but I feel like the boulders have a higher volume in general. They're not like, I wouldn't consider them a high volume shoe by no means, but they just have more volume overall. And I have found that when I don't tighten the laces up and I try to do like a foot jam into something, or if I'm going on uneven terrain, my foot will start spinning in the shoe, just because I can't, if I don't take the time to really lace up and get it super tight, there's just too much empty space. Whereas something like the TX3s or the TX2 Evos, I don't really have to worry about that because they are so low profile and they're like just right on top of my foot. So it is kind of a nuisance to deal with these. And surprisingly, with this pair that I got, I size these in the same exact size as I size everything else. They're a 44 European. Don't know if you can see that or not. But for whatever reason, these shoes are the tightest fitting shoes I own. My TX3s fit really good. They have lots of room. My TX2s are my TX2 Evos are slightly tighter, but they still have good room. Whereas with these, like if I wear a thin sock, they feel fine. But if I ever like step up to like even like a darn tough sock, my feet are like just cramped and there's not enough room. So it's really weird that these have the tightest fit out of them all. I don't know. Fitting's kind of weird with the boulders. Like I said, they are more of like that. They're a weird high volume, low volume shoe. But yeah, they're just different. But if you are looking for a shoe that's very durable, that's going to last you a long time, that's going to have a durable outsole that you can climb in, and relatively for what you get into the boulders, are more on kind of the cheaper end for Sportiva's approach shoes. I think the TX2 Evas I think are the cheapest because there's less material, but for a good bomb-proof shoe, you really can't beat the boulders. I mean, that's why they still continue to make them, and that's why they'll still continue to produce them into the future. They're just a good, reliable shoe. So overall, they are a reliable shoe. I don't know if I will get another pair after these. I think I'll just kind of transition fully over to the TX line. That's probably what I'll do. But overall, like I said, they're a really good shoe. And if you think you have a more of like a high volume, low volume foot, they'll work perfect for you. So yeah, so after many years of use, I do like them still, but I don't know if I'll go with them for the future. So yeah, that is the La Sportiva boulders. If you have any questions on these that I didn't get to, be sure to comment and I'll get to them as fast as I can. Hopefully I can answer them. And yeah, thank you guys for watching this video, and I will see you guys in the next one.